Good morning. This is the Lou Rockwell Show, and how great it is to have as our guest this morning, Mr. Gerald Celente. Gerald is the founder and director of the Trends Research Institute. He's the publisher of the Trends Journal. He's a prognosticator in economic and political and military areas of amazing prescience. We'll link, of course, to his archive on LRC, to his site directdemocracynow.org, to his YouTube channel, his Facebook page. Follow Gerald on Twitter, too, of course. Gerald, before we get talking about the impending political and military and economic disasters, tell us what's happened in your battle with MF Global.
Everyone should understand that this battle, by the way, is not mine. It's everybody's battle. The criminality of what the money changers and the political and financial mob can get away with is in front of everyone's eyes. Here's something that comes under the category, Lou, of that you can't make this up. One of the trustees, Louis Freeh, former FBI director.
And a creep.
Well, I call him Louis Freeloader. Another one of these guys that gets these jobs because, he's a member of the club. Well, he decided, Louis did, that the COO and the CFO and the general counsel of MF Global, for doing such a wonderful job in cleaning up this mess, should get a bonus. In other words, they didn't steal enough of my money and everybody else's. They got to get what's ever left. And I'm saying this, it's not only MF Global. Pick up any day's paper and read about the banking frauds that continue to go on and the schemes undreamed of that they come up with to make it seem as though the banks are being punished when we're paying the freight. I'm going to make this really clear, Lou. Unless you have your money in your pocket, you don't own it. I don't care if you have it with MF Global, Raymond James, Charles Schwab, you have it with Mickey Mouse, because it ain't your dough. And they're going to change the laws anytime they want to make sure you don't have it. And there's no criminality involved in this. I mean, you saw, what's his name over there, John Corzine, former CEO of Goldman Sachs, former governor of New Jersey and senator of New Jersey, when he went before that rinky-dink committee over there from the House Committee to answer questions. What was the word in front of his name? Honorable John Corzine. Honorable? How about John the Slime Corzine? Can anyone say that? The point being, Lou, there's no indictment. There's no criminal charges. Justice, the word justice, everybody out there, understand this. It's J-U-S-T-U-S, just us. So that's how it's going with MF Global. It's business as usual. The merger of state and corporate powers, fascism. We're getting raped in broad daylight by the money changers, the loan sharks, or as they like to call themselves today, bankers.
Gerald, they, of course, stole your money for a significant period of time. Have you gotten some of it back, all of it back?
I got 2/3 of it back.
Unbelievable. So they stole a third of your resources.
They stole a third of my resources, and then they're cutting up what's left over to give to their buddies. Let's call this what it is. I've said this many times before. If the names on Wall Street were named Celente, Caruso, Mondavi, Puccini, Rossini, they call it the Mafia. But now you got Louis Freeh in there. He's a former FBI guy. Hey, it's okay. Come on, this is a criminal operation, and it's going on in front of everyone's face. And whether it's in the U.S. or the EU, look at the scheme that they came up with over there, Lou, just before Christmas and continuing on now, to keep the Ponzi scheme going on over there. Oh, the head of the ECB, Mario Draghi. Mario Draghi. You mean the former vice chairman of Goldman Sachs gang over there in Europe? Yeah, that Mario. Well, he says, I'll tell you what, you guys in the money changers, the banks, I'm going to give you all the money you need. Take as much as you need. Don't worry about it. You can pay me back in 3 years. Just keep the Ponzi scheme going. I'll charge you 1% interest rate, but put it back with us. Put it back in the bank. We'll hold it. You could use it as much as you want. We'll give you 25% back. It's one big scheme, and everybody's paying for it. They're paying it for it out of their pockets, and they're paying it with their lives.
Gerald, what's going to happen in Europe? Are, of course, the governments and the banks working together are willing to give every dime of the people's money to the banks and to the governments. But can they actually get away with it, or is the crisis even beyond their control?
It's beyond their control, and that's why they're cracking down like they're doing right here in the good old USA. You know, when the money stops flowing down to the man on the street, the blood starts flowing in the streets. And this is as old as history. And that's what's going on right now. The people have nothing. And and for what? Because the banks made bad bets. That's all it is. And they made bad bets, and they want the people to cover the losses. And the big lie becomes, I'll tell you what we have to do to fix this. We have to cut pensions, benefits. We're going to raise the retirement age till after you die. You don't deserve anything. Oh, by the way, we're going to put tax on top of tax on top of tax. We're going to tax you every way you can look. Oh, and if you break the law in the most minor way, we're going to clamp down on you to get more money. And that's going to fix the system. With all of this talk, you hear about the people's irresponsibility, but you never hear about, those exotic financial instruments, those derivatives, those collateralized debt obligations, those synthetic collateralized debt obligations, all of this leverage, privatization, hedge funds, buyouts, you name it, none of that's talked about. So there's going to be riots in the street. Lou, it's the beginning of World War III. The first great war of the 21st century has begun. How many countries do you have to add up? Let's go down the list real quick. Tunisia, Egypt, Yemen, Bahrain, Syria, Morocco, Spain, Portugal, Greece, riots everywhere. UK. Oh, no, it wasn't. No, the riots last year in the UK, those were hooligans. That's right, hooligans. You know, and the ones over there in Greece, those are anarchists. You could see it all over their face, behind the masks. The war is going on, and the top is totally out of touch with the rest of society.
Gerald, speaking of war, are we facing, in your view, a war with Iran, a war on Iran, I should say?
Well, the war on Iran has already begun. It's an act of war has been declared. When President Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act on New Year's Eve, which also robbed us of our rights, they effectively declared economic war against Iran. They're shutting Iran out of the oil market. It's nearly impossible for banks to do business and do trading to clear the money to buy the oil. And even if they can, as Iran is accepting gold in exchange for oil, they can't get insurance on the tankers. So the war has already been declared. But this is very important, Lou, and I'm glad you brought this up, because we just saw the meeting between Netanyahu and Obama in Washington and all of the press and all of the concern it's generated. What it's effectively done now is give Netanyahu, with everybody's focus on Iran, free wheel once again to start killing the Palestinians, as they did last week, under the guise that they uncovered a plot of a militant that was going to launch an attack against Israel. So they preemptively struck, and they've killed, as we're speaking, they've probably killed about 30 Palestinians in the last couple of days. And then the propaganda is, oh, yeah, well, they're firing them rockets into Israel. Oh, rockets, sure. We could call them rockets. I mean, these are crudely made things that cost, maybe $100 to make. And they've been landing everywhere and nowhere, and they haven't killed anybody. So the propaganda, you see, has worked perfectly. We've put everybody's focus on attention, and Israel could continue to do what they're doing, stealing land and killing Palestinians without anybody condemning them. And here's the hypocrisy, Lou, that Israel could thumb their nose at international law anytime they want, but if Assad or Ahmadinejad step out of line, or Gaddafi in the least way, and snubbing their nose at international law, the full force of the United States and NATO comes down on them.
Boy, it's right. And of course, actually, the U.S. has been persecuting Iran in economic terms for decades, and never have forgiven, of course, the fact that the U.S. representative in the Middle East, the Shah of Iran, the murderous police state, corrupt son of a gun who was ruling Iran for the U.S. and for the British and for various oil interests, that he was tossed out by the people. They've never forgiven the Iranian people, and so they've been punishing them, lowering their standard of living drastically for decades. And as you say, however, this most recent one is the worst yet, in an attempt to destroy all international trade. These are the people, of course, talk about wanting free trade, but they don't believe in free trade. They believe in sanctions, and they're trying to crush the Iranians. Do you think that it'll actually be, India so far is saying they are going to deal in gold with Iran for Iranian oil. Do you think that will be allowed, or will the U.S. be bombing India next?
No, what's happened is, yes, India said that they would be able to do it, but they canceled the last shipment because they couldn't get insurance on the tankers.
So the U.S. pressures the insurance companies not to insure the tankers.
Exactly. The U.S. and the U.K. That other little chicken hawk over there, Cameron. I hate all these little guys, that talk tough, and they have the cojones the size of a moth. They've never gotten a schoolyard brawl, yet alone in a real fight. And here they're ready to go talk tough and kill other people. No, by the way, here's another. You were talking about Iran and what the United States has done to him. As you well point out, the Savak, or the secret police under the Shah, the brutality, and how the CIA and the UK's, was it MI6 or 5? Was 0, overthrew the democratically elected government of Mossadegh in 1953 in Iran because he had the nerve to throw out Standard Oil and Anglo-Iranian oil, better known today as BP. So people don't know that history, and they think, it's just maybe there are a bunch of lunatics running Iran, but what happens is because they radicalize the situation by not letting the revolution happen, then it happens the way it is. But I hear people like Obama and all these phony presidential candidates always using Christianity and the name of Christ to make their point. So, for example, at a recent prayer breakfast, President Obama said, as good Christians, we should all embrace the words of our Creator and, quote, love thy neighbor. Oh, yeah, except if it's Iran. Yeah. Or how about Pakistan or sending predator drones into Yemen? Not those neighbors. How about Afghanistan? Bombs away, Obama. The hypocrisy of this. And nobody calls them out. Love thy neighbor.
Is it that Americans are just bloodthirsty? Are we a bloodthirsty people?
America has lost its morality. These wars are going on all around us. How many more atrocities have to happen in front of us before people stand up and speak out? And I'll tell you, Lou, people ask me, when are things going to change? They're not going to change until the people change. It's about the individual. What are you doing in your life, emotionally and spiritually and physically, to be in the best shape that you can? How are you dealing with people every day? Are you doing honest business? Are you living an honest life? Nothing is going, that great saying, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. Anybody that's really studied at anything knows what I'm talking about. You could be going at something a long time. The great teacher comes in, everything changes because you were ready to accept it. When the people change morally, then the leadership, I believe, will appear. This word of American exceptionalism, exceptional at what? Waging wars against innocent people for fake reasons? Exceptionable for what? Being drug addicted on pharmaceutical drugs that have people's minds wasted? Exceptional at what? Eating more junk food and becoming the most obese nation on earth? No, until we regain our morality, then nothing will change.
Gerald, what's ahead for us here economically? Do you think we face the sort of social unrest here that we've seen in Europe?
Yes, but it's going to be clamped down upon very hard. And you can see with the police what they're doing, the weaponry that they have, and the actions they're taking to bring down the smallest provocation. And the other thing, Lou, is that they're going to continue to dump money into the system to keep it going. They keep, as you well know, the inflation numbers mean absolutely nothing. They're cooked numbers. So it's kind of like the frog in the boiling water. You just keep turning the heat up a little bit until it's dead. That's what's going on. I don't think there's going to be a big shock unless, and again, you can't predict the future,